Hey, what's going on, everybody? Special guest back again. Evan Dudley covers UAB for AL.com. We're here to talk about Lucious Stanley, Miami transfer. So, Evan, how's it going? Good talking to you again right in the middle of getting ready for the season.
Right. Good to be back, man. Good to hear from you. Pleasure to be back on.
Yeah, so let's get into Lucious here. He's had a long career at UAB there. I guess we'll get into some maybe more detailed on things, but just your initial impressions of him as a player, kind of what he's bringing to the table. Again, just turned 24 over the summer, 6 foot, 215 is what he's listed at. And he's coming in, my understanding, as a walk-on for Miami, kind of alleviates some of the running back depth issues that they're dealing with injuries. But just overall thoughts on what he's bringing to the table?
Well, he's going to be a hard worker. He's, like you say, about 6 foot, 215 back. So he's a little bit bigger, but he's got some speed on him. So he's kind of a battering ram at times. He had a pretty good career at UAB. He was kind of their third guy most times, in their backfield. But, with a lot of injuries they've had here and there, he was able to play a good bit. Within, his 4 years there, he rushed for over 1,000 yards. So he's got 1,000 yards in his career. He's a guy that's, been through the trenches, been through the wars. He's seen a lot of college football. So just bringing him in, he brings a lot of experience on top of it, good work ethic. So he should be able to acclimate, pretty quickly and, be able to provide some really good depth for this backfield.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you mentioned, over 1,000 yards in his career, 12 touchdowns. He's averaged over 5 yards a carry in his career. Like you said, he's kind of been settled into that 3-4, just typically roll each year. Why do you think it's a good fit for him at Miami in the sense of with the experience he's had and maybe making this transition? What do you think Miami saw in him that they really liked?
Well, like I said, this is a guy with experience. He's played in a lot of games. He's got a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of plays. Just having a guy in that you can bring in and, you don't have to work so well on the smaller details. He's been groomed in that area. So, you're really just having to put a playbook in front of him and let him kind of learn that and, kind of learn his offensive lineman, who's going to block this way, that way. But, as far as the finer details of being a running back, this guy has got those things. He's been a 4-year back in college. So, just the experience is the biggest thing, I think. Also, he's sort of a local guy. From the other side of the state, sort of, but Fort Myers guy, but, he's somewhat local. I think it was just kind of good getting him in there, some South Florida flavor, some extra added into that Miami, running back room, along with a lot of the guys that, Cristobal's been getting from that South Florida area, kind of redominating that area for Miami. And I think, Lucious kind of just he really feels a need for them, especially with the injuries they've had. So I think he's a guy they can count on. They'll be able to count on. He might not be at the starter day one, or even at the end of the season, but he's a guy that'll get you some good hard yards, get you some first downs when you need them.
You touched on his work ethic at the beginning. Just what can you say about him and what you know about him, essentially what he's going to bring to a team?
Throughout the years that I've known him and just cover him, he was a guy who was always at practice. He always went through the drills. He wasn't injured very much, or if he was injured, it was more of a hurt, versus injured kind of a scenario, where he could still play. Those type of things that, he's just kind of a warrior. He's been through it. He's got the hits on him. So, he knows what it takes to thrive in college football, to be able to, get the hard yards. Like you say, he's getting 5 yards, about 5 yards a carry. So, he can also make good long runs, when he has the opportunity and the blocking setup. So, I think it's just a good way to cap off his career, especially because he entered the transfer portal after last year, looking for a home for a final year. A lot of guys kind of did that. Antonio Moultrie was able to come there to Miami. Stanley's kind of this last edition. I think it just works well for him to come in and kind of play his last season, kind of for, a university team that he had been probably grew up, rooting for.
I want to touch on his career a little bit. Based on the numbers, that 2019 was a season high, 414 yards, 7 touchdowns for a team that went 9-5, played in the Conference USA Championship game and a bowl game as well. I'm curious maybe what kind of turned or what didn't go more positively for him in these next 2 years after that in terms of building off of that year, which was his best statistical season.
The best explanation I can give you is the arrival of Dwayne McBride. He came in his freshman year. He was averaging almost 10 yards a carry. Had the two of the longest touchdown runs in school history of that year. just a guy that was an immediate impact to go along with Spencer Brown, who was already the starter at that point. So his kind of arrival, along with Jermaine Brown, who was kind of been their running back receiver. He can kind of do it both as far as a running back is concerned. So he was kind of their kind of do it all kind of athlete. Jermaine Brown was. So with those two guys really coming up, that just kind of left Lucious kind of still stuck in that third position, but not in a position to where he wasn't going to get carries, he wasn't going to get opportunities. It's more of this is your role. We can count on you to do this, and so we're going to keep doing that. And I think that's more so it. And in 2019, there was an injury to Spencer Brown, which allowed Lucious to get a couple of starts under his belt. I think he had a 100-yard game at UTSA in 2019. So, he was just able to get more opportunities with injuries, but he's always kind of been that, just really consistent guy, in that third back role.
You touched on he's from North Fort Myers, played linebacker in high school, kind of has that size, just seems to have that toughness that you like to see. With his games, are there games that stand out to you with him? His top 3 single game performances all came in 2019. UTSA, 92 yards, Rice, a couple touchdowns, 88 yards, North Texas, 72. Is there any game or either of those 3 or any of his games that really stand out to you with him over his career?
I'll tell one from this past season. It was the regular season finale at home against UTEP. And after they had pretty much, got everything in hand, Lucious was coming out, he was playing the majority of the second half. And I believe he got a long, maybe 20, 30-yard touchdown run right near the end. And, of course, first person to celebrate with him is his brother, Lucious Stanley, who was at South Florida for a little while. But, he transferred to UAB as well. But that's just one of those plays that kind of sticks out to me, because they were still playing against UTEP's ones at that point. So just the fact that, even if he's playing in that role, he's still, trying to do what he needs to do to be successful. And he can break long runs. He can move the pile when necessary. As far as really a Miami back, he really kind of reminds me of Willis McGahee a little bit because he has that kind of upright running style at times too. That's something I kind of noticed with him. Something I always think back when I see guys like that. I think of Willis McGahee back in Miami back in the early 2000s. I just remember seeing that guy almost standing straight up while running. I just thought that was the coolest thing. And so he's got a little bit of that style in him too. So I think, and that's probably someone he probably mirrored some of his game after being a South Florida guy. But, obviously 2019 would be his biggest moments. But, I mean, just the consistency over his career of being counted upon, maybe not the starting back, but, they know they can go to him in a pinch. And I think that was kind of his biggest, real accomplishment was just his consistency over his career.
So you're talking about his consistency, touched on reliability has been a positive work ethic. What about his personality? Do you know much about him, like in that sense, what he's going to be kind of bringing to the team in terms of a locker room presence?
Well, talking to other guys on the team during the time, I know he was a great teammate to these guys. He's always in good spirits. He was never really down. He wasn't maybe disappointed with his role, maybe a little bit humbled at first, but I think it's something that he accepted, embraced, really took pride in at one point. I actually talked to Coach Vincent this morning, the UAB interim coach. I'll read that quote for you real quick. I asked him about Lucious. I talked to Lucious a couple of days ago on the phone, and for about 2 years, he was our number 3 back. And when we had a couple of injuries, he was able to come in and give us some big games. The UTSA was one of the games, a couple of years ago. He came in rush. So Lucious was always ready for his role. He embraced his role, and he really stepped up for our football team when we needed him. For him to have the opportunity to go down there to Miami, I think he's going to be successful, understanding life. He's had a couple of injuries, nothing serious, but, for him to come in and be that guy, I think he'll be able to, go down to Miami and be very successful. So a lot of high praise from their, head coach who was their offensive coordinator. So, he saw a lot of Lucious in practice. So, he knows what Miami's getting in that, and it's a good guy, a good teammate, good work ethic, consistency. And, he's got an opportunity for a final season of college football. And within that, a guy's going to take, things a little bit more seriously or, a little bit half and half. He's going to be seriously on the field, but he's also going to enjoy the fun of it too, knowing that it's his last year. But I think it's a great addition, just to have him in that room providing depth.
Yeah, and providing depth is certainly a key. Just to recap, if you haven't heard, so Miami had 5 scholarship running backs going into the season. Trevante Citizen has been ruled out for the year with a knee injury there. Don Chaney Jr., it's been reported several weeks. Coach mentioned several weeks. So down to 3 guys. They do, and that's Henry Parrish, Jalen Knighton, and Thad Franklin with big size there. And then also they like to walk on and Devon Perry, but now bringing in Lucious into the mix. It's going to be interesting and see how quickly he can be acclimated, if he could find himself a role on this team. Evan, before I wrap up here, I definitely appreciate your time. Special teams, is that something Lucious has done at UAB?
Absolutely. Yeah. Most of these guys, they come in, they're going to play special teams at the very beginning of their careers. That's something that Bill Clark was always big on. You even had Spencer Brown playing special teams his senior year. So, that's something they really pride on. They're not just going to, put a bunch of walk-ons on special teams. They want good players on special teams to, that they can count on. And, from what we've seen with UAB special teams in return game, they've done really well. I think Lucious was probably more defensive, on return team, not so much carrying the ball, but I think he might have had a few returns here and there, but for the most part, he was playing special teams on the defensive side. But, he's a guy that's going to, whenever you put him on the field, he's going to go in and do his job.
Yeah, that's great. With his linebacker background, that's why I brought that up. So, Evan, appreciate you taking the time. Definitely enjoy this season, and we'll talk soon, possibly. Take care, though.
All right. Thanks, man.